defending the Constitution. He's been to the Supreme Court 9 times, and he's fought for our Second Amendment. He's fought for religious liberties. He has done it all. And at a time when our country's in such great peril, there's one man that is so uniquely situated to be able to rescue the foundation of our country, our United States Constitution. Now, I think the biggest reason we need to push for Ted Cruz is we have a generational opportunity to elect a true conservative. How many presidential cycles have we had to pull the ballot for a Republican for president that we didn't feel was going to be the conservative that was going to be tested and consistent? How many times? A few times? Ted Cruz has been unyielding in Washington. He has caved to no one. He's gone there and done everything he said he was going to do. He will be that next generation of leader. He will go and win our nation with conservative ideas. He will rally people like my grandfather, Paul Laxalt, and Ronald Reagan did. And they were able to turn a Nevada that was 3-1 Democrat and make it a Republican state because they stood for conservative, bold principles. And people looked at them and said, I want to stand with them. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why I'm supporting Ted Cruz. I need you to turn out. We need to win Elko County. You have to go find your friends, your neighbors, your relatives. We have to win this county for Ted Cruz. I'm going to run a quick video before we bring him out. Roll the video. Hopefully it's ready.
The first candidate to officially get in the race for president. No exploratory committee, no mulling the pros and cons. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas will announce tomorrow he is all in.
Today, I am announcing that I'm running for president of the United States.
Is the most conservative candidate running, the most consistently conservative candidate running.
I think Ted Cruz is a rock. Timid and cowardly.
If you're looking for the Republican candidate who is the most opposed to liberalism, it's Ted Cruz.
How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
Cruz.
Here's what I tell everybody.
God bless the great state of Nevada. I'm thrilled to be here in Elko. Thank you for coming out today. And let me say thank you to the men and women of Nevada for electing a strong, principled constitutionalist like your Attorney General, Adam Laxalt. Adam fights every day for your freedom. You know, his grandfather stood shoulder to shoulder with Ronald Reagan when Ronald Reagan stood up to Washington and changed the direction of this country. And when Adam ran for Attorney General, the entire political establishment said it wasn't his turn, wait in line, he wasn't supposed to win. And the men and women of this state said, we want a proven constitutionalist to stand up and fight for us. And I'm very proud to have Adam as our Nevada State Chair. I'm also thrilled to be here with Congressman Raul Labrador.
If you see something, say something. Report suspicious activity to local law enforcement. For the specifics on
Raul leads the Freedom Caucus in the House of Representatives,
go to dps.nv.gov and click on Plan Ahead,
which are the conservatives in the House that are saying enough is enough is enough.
Emergency Management, your local emergency manager.
No more giving in and rolling over to the Democrats.
Association and this station. Nevada Republican.
No payroll.
Chance to vote for your favorite Republican candidate. If you can't be there at the start of the meeting, it's okay. Join the meeting when you
How about if Republicans actually act like Republicans? Actually do what we say. And I'll tell you what, when you stand up in Washington and say that, they don't like it. There's a reason Raul and I both need food tasters in the members' dining room. But listen, here in Nevada, y'all have some familiarity with politicians that run campaigning promising to cut taxes and then get in office and push through a massive tax increase. And let me say, all across this country, we are fed up with politicians who say one thing and do another. Either tell the truth and do what you said you would do, or get the heck out of the way. And how about Glenn Beck? Isn't Glenn fantastic? Every time I listen to Glenn, I'm inspired. Glenn can touch your heart. Every time I listen to Glenn, I learn something. You know, he's an educator. I love when he brings out the whiteboard. Starts walking people through. This is what progressivism is. It's destroying America. And as Glenn lays out, progressivism is not a sin limited to Democrat. There are far too many Republican progressives that have been part of taking away our freedom. You know, when Glenn lays out, these are the principles of the framers, these are the principles that built this country, that turned America into this exceptional nation that we are. You know, I would note, it's easy for a political candidate to say he wants to make America great again. You can even take that printed and put it on a baseball cap. But the question to ask is, do you understand the principles that made America great in the first place? The principles that our freedoms don't come from government. They come from God Almighty. And that the Constitution serves, as Thomas Jefferson puts it, as chains to bind the mischief of government. You know, all of us are here today because our country's in crisis. Because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights every day. And because America has receded from leadership in the world, and it has made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet, we're here today with a word of hope and encouragement. All across this country, people are waking up. There is a spirit of awakening that is sweeping this country. So I want to ask everyone here to look forward. Look forward to January 2017. If I'm elected president, let me tell you what I intend to do on the first day in office. The first thing I intend to do is rescind every The second thing I intend to do on the first day in office with any luck, she'll be there already. Although I am told the Democrats are opening up a new polling place at Leavenworth. The second thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the U.S. Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and prosecute any and all criminal violations. The third thing I intend to do is instruct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every other federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today. That means that every serviceman and woman has the right to seek out and worship God Almighty with all of their hearts, minds, and souls, and their superior officer has nothing to say. The fourth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. And the fifth thing I intend to do is begin the process of moving the American Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. Now that's day one. In the days that follow, I will nominate a strong, principled constitutionalist to replace Justice Scalia on the U.S. Supreme Court. You know, 2 days ago, I had the honor of attending Justice Scalia's funeral. Justice Scalia was a lion of the law. I was blessed to know him for 20 years personally. He was brilliant, passionate. He was a voluble Italian. His wife, Maureen, was delightful, was Irish. Let me tell you, being Cuban, Irish, and Italian, let me tell you, that is a combustible combination. And Justice Scalia loved the Constitution. He was a ferocious defender of the Bill of Rights. As Ronald Reagan was to the presidency, so too was Justice Scalia to the U.S. Supreme Court. And we are one justice away from a radical 5-justice liberal majority, the likes of which this country has never seen. You know, before I was in the Senate, I was the Solicitor General of Texas, the chief lawyer for the state in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's an executive post I held 5.5 years, defending conservative principles in the Bill of Rights over and over again and winning nationally. We defended the Ten Commandments monument that stands on the state capitol grounds. We went to the U.S. Supreme Court and we won 5-4. One more liberal justice, and we will see Ten Commandments monuments torn down in city halls and county courthouses and public parks all over this country. You know, Justice Scalia's most significant majority opinion was Heller versus the District of Columbia. I know Heller very well because I represented 31 states in Heller defending the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And we won 5-4. Folks here in Nevada kind of like their guns. Let me say, as a Texan, I understand. But we are one justice away from the Supreme Court effectively writing the Second Amendment out of the Bill of Rights and trying to strip the individual right to keep and bear arms of every man and woman here. And let me be clear, by the way. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's not about skeet shooting or target shooting. Those are wonderful things, but that is not why the Second Amendment is in the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment is in the Bill of Rights because every one of us has a God-given right. If anyone comes into our home at night, seeks to harm our family, seeks to harm our children, we have a God-given right to defend our home, to defend our family, and to defend our children. You know, the biggest case of my tenure as Solicitor General was a case called Medellin versus Texas. Now, Medellin began with a really horrific crime in Houston. 2 teenage girls were horribly assaulted and murdered by a gang. One of those gang members, Jose Ernesto Medellin, was an illegal alien who confessed to the murder in writing, was convicted by a jury of his peers. But then the case took a very strange turn. Because the World Court, the judicial arm of the United Nations, issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers across this country. It's the first time in history a foreign court has ever tried to bind the U.S. justice system. Texas stood up and we fought the World Court. I had the honor of arguing this case twice in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. On the other side, we had the World Court. We had the United Nations. We had 90 foreign nations. And we had the President of the United States. And I'm sorry to tell you that President was not Barack Obama. It was George W. Bush. Now listen, I've met my wife Heidi working on the 2000 Bush presidential campaign. We came out of that campaign. Which leads to a lousy joke I've told many, many times. Which is whatever else anyone says about George W. Bush, in our house, he will always be a uniter and not a divider. But in this instance, President Bush received some very, very bad advice. Because he signed a 2-paragraph order that attempted to order the state courts to obey the world court. So I had a very interesting conversation with my boss, the Attorney General, Greg Abbott, now the governor of Texas. It was an unusual thing for the state of Texas to be opposing the President of the United States in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly when that president was a Texan, was a Republican, was the former governor of our state, and was a friend. And yet I'm proud to tell you that I went twice before the Supreme Court and argued, number one, the World Court and the United Nations have no jurisdiction whatsoever over the United States of America. And number two, no president of the United States, Democrat or Republican, has the constitutional authority to give away U.S. sovereignty. And we won 6-3. On the final iteration of that case, that too ended up 5-4. Which means we are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court holding that the World Court of the United Nations can bind this country, can subject us to international law, and can take away U.S. sovereignty from where it belongs, we the people. You know, I think Justice Scalia's passing has caused a great many men and women in Nevada, a great many men and women across this country to look at the individuals on that stage with a different degree of seriousness. It's not one, it is two branches of government that are at stake in this election. And to ask, who do I know? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, who do I know will appoint principled constitutionalists to the U.S. Supreme Court? I give you my solemn words. Every justice I put on court will be a principled constitutionalist who will ferociously defend the Bill of Rights for your children and for mine. We get this wrong. We elect a Democrat or even the wrong Republican, and we will lose the Supreme Court and the Bill of Rights for a generation. In the days that follow, I will go to Congress, and we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We'll pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. I will instruct the U.S. Department of Education that Common Core ends today. We will finally secure the borders and end sanctuary cities. And let me say to all the men and women in Nevada that are facing an economy where it's hard to find a job, where your wages are pushed down, where your opportunity is limited, that if we elect a candidate who supports amnesty, who supports citizenship for the 12 million people here illegally, that will consistently take away jobs and drive down wages from hardworking men and women in this country, and I will always oppose amnesty, and I always have. In the days that follow, we will rebuild the military. And we will honor our solemn commitments made to every soldier and sailor and airman and Marine. That includes fundamentally reforming the VA so that every veteran has the right to choose his or her doctor. That also includes protecting the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms of every serviceman and woman. One of the most shameful things we have seen over the last 7 years is the President sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement so strict their arms are tied behind their back and they cannot win and they cannot defeat the enemy. That is wrong, it is immoral, and mark my words, in January 2017, it will end. America has always been reluctant to engage in military conflict. We are slow to anger. But if and when military force is needed, we will use overwhelming force, we will destroy the enemy, and then we will get the heck out. And when it comes to radical Islamic terrorism, we'll have a president willing to utter the words, radical Islamic terrorism. And we will not weaken, we will not degrade, we will completely and utterly destroy ISIS. In the days that follow, we'll take on the EPA. And the BLM. And the CFPB, and the alphabet soup of federal agencies that have descended like locusts on farmers and ranchers and small businesses, killing jobs all across this country. You know, I'm reminded of a few years back. I was out in West Texas. And I asked folks there, I said, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, the thing is, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. This Aubrey leaned back, said, "Want to bet?" And listen, when it comes to the BLM, y'all know something about that. 85% of the state of Nevada is owned by the federal government. Right here and now, if I am elected president, that will end. This is an issue on which there's a real difference of opinion between me and my opponents. Donald Trump, who is a good man, has come out publicly and said he believes the federal government to own and control all that land. I think he's wrong. I think it needs to be transferred back to the state and back to the people, because I trust the people of Nevada more than the bureaucrats in Washington. And in the days that follow, I will go to Congress, and we will pass a simple flat tax. Where every American can fill out our taxes on a postcard. We'll end the death tax. And will abolish the IRS. You know, for everyone here, when it comes to providing for our families, that's very real and very personal. For 7 years, we've seen the Obama-Clinton economy. We've seen stagnation. We've seen the lowest level of labor force participation since 1977. We've seen wages stagnate for 20 years. We've seen single moms struggling to feed their kids, ending up working 2, 3, 4 part-time jobs because Obamacare knocks them down to 28, 29 hours a week. We see young people coming out of school with debts up to their eyeballs, scared, what kind of future can I have? Let me tell you, when we get back to the free enterprise principles that built America, that made it great, when we repeal Obamacare, when we pass a simple flat tax, when we pull back the EPA regulators, when we pull back the BLM, when we allow free men and free women the ability to work and provide for their families, we're going to see millions and millions of high-paying jobs, of wages going up, of young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job opportunities. We're going to be winning so much, we'll get tired of winning. And for everyone here, freedom is not some abstract concept we read about in the school book. Freedom is real, it's personal in our lives, our families. You know, for me, I think about my dad. My dad was born and raised in Cuba. As a kid, he fought the Cuban Revolution. And he was imprisoned, he was tortured. As a teenager, my father found himself on the floor of a Cuban jail cell, covered in mud and blood and grime. His nose was broken, his teeth were shattered out of his mouth. And he remembers thinking, I don't have any kids. Nobody depends on me. It doesn't matter if I live or I die. But thankfully, God had different plans for my father. He was released from that jail cell and he fled to America. He came here, he was just 18 years old. Couldn't speak a word of English, had nothing, had $100 sewn into his underwear. I don't actually advise carrying money in your underwear. And he got a job washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour. And he worked 7 days a week, he paid his way through school. He and my mom went on to start a small business together. So I grew up in Texas as the son of 2 small business owners, seeing the ups and downs, the triumphs and challenges of running a small family business. Today, my dad is a pastor. He travels the country preaching the gospel. When I was a kid, my dad used to say to me over and over again, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That is why all of us are here tonight. Because we are not prepared to go quietly into the night. We are not prepared to give up on our kids and grandkids. Now, some of you may wonder, can it happen? Can we do it? Can we pull this country back? You know, Scripture tells us there's nothing new under the sun. I think where we are today is very, very much like the late 1970s, the Jimmy Carter administration. Same failed economic policies. Same feckless and naive foreign policies. In fact, the exact same countries, Russia and Iran, openly laughing at it. Now, why is it that that analogy gives me so much hope and optimism? Because we remember how that story ended. All across this country, millions of men and women rose up and became the Reagan Revolution. And it didn't come from Washington. Washington despised Ronald Reagan. By the way, you ask the simple question, who is Washington attacking? Instead, the Reagan Revolution came from the American people, and it turned this country around. Why am I so optimistic? Because the same thing is happening again all over this country. Listen, if y'all agree with me that it's now or never, that the stakes have never been higher, that we are standing at the edge of a cliff staring down, and if we keep going the same direction another 4 or 8 more years, we risk doing irreparable damage to the greatest country in the history of the world. Then I want to ask each of you, 23 hours from now, tomorrow night are the Nevada caucuses. The men and women in this room have a national bully pulpit, have the ability to stand up and speak and say, enough is enough. No more campaign conservatives, no more empty promises. We want a proven constitutional conservative who will fight the Washington cartel and fight for the working men and women of this country. No deals. That is exactly right. Stop cutting deals with our freedoms, with our children, with our grandchildren. Look, you want to sum up this race? A couple of weeks ago, Jimmy Carter endorsed Donald Trump. I'm not making this up. You can Google this. Jimmy Carter was up in London, and they asked him, what do you think about the race? And Carter said, listen, between Trump and Cruz, I'd vote for Trump. And he said the reason is, and this is Jimmy Carter speaking, he said Trump is malleable. He has no fixed set of convictions or beliefs. So he will do whatever we want him to do. We can work with him. And then Jimmy Carter continued, he said, Cruz is not malleable. Cruz actually believes this stuff. I'm going to utter a sentence that I've never uttered in any other context. I agree with Jimmy Carter. But if you agree that the stakes are this high, that we can't get it wrong, that we can't get burned again, then I want to ask you not only for everyone here to come out tomorrow night and caucus for us, but pick up the phone and call your friends and family and neighbors and loved ones and business partners and say, come out with me. Let me tell you, last year, the caucus here had just over 800 people attend. Take a look around the room. That's about the number of people in this room. I like the way you add. There's even more here. That's even better. Let me tell you this. If every person shows up tomorrow night in caucuses and brings 9 other people with you, every one of you will have voted 10 times. And you will change the turnout here to be 10 times greater than it was 4 years ago. And to those of you who are not yet old enough to vote, let me tell you, if you get 10 other people to show up tomorrow night and vote, you will have voted 10 times before you turn 18. If everyone in this room shows up tomorrow night and votes in the caucuses and stands with us and brings 9 other people, without exaggeration, the men and women gathered right here can control the outcome of the Nevada caucuses. You have the power to speak, not just for yourself, but for hundreds, for thousands across this country that do not have a voice, but have that same passion for freedom that we do. We've got 23 hours to bring every friend, every family, every neighbor to say, listen. You know, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we love our kids. My daughters, Caroline and Catherine, are 7 and 5. I don't want to look my girls in the eyes and tell them I sat by idle while their freedoms were stripped away, while their future was held down in debt, while they lost the birthright of what it means to be an American. You don't either. That is why we're here, and that is why we're fighting. And it took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama is going to be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party who stand and fight for freedom, who stand and fight for the Constitution, and who stand and fight for the Judeo-Christian values that built this country into the greatest country in the history of the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
For those of you just joining us, we are watching Ted Cruz caucus. We are watching a Ted Cruz rally. He was just telling people in Vegas, encouraging
we got to rather get some more sleep. When we're a teacher that sacrifices pay, changing lives, that person needs to be honored. And when somebody takes that lady, that widow, married for 54 years, whose husband has died, we call her up and say, hey, we're taking you to dinner on Saturday night. And when you pick her up, she got her hair done. and she wore the dress she hadn't worn in 6 months. You see, the strength of our country is bottom up, not top down. It's realizing that the Lord has made us all special. He has made us special to live a life bigger than ourselves, to bring a healing to the world in which we live, based on whatever it means for all of us. And students, no drugs. Because the reason why you stay off those drugs is because they'll kill you, but there's another reason. Because then you can't carry out your mission. And when you can't carry out your mission in life, you're going to find a life of frustration. But when you can carry out your mission in life and help somebody else to get up off their feet, is there ever a better feeling than that? I don't think there is. So let me say this. I'll take care of the budget and the defense and all that stuff. Let me do that. I'll call you if I need you. But you take care of the things right in your own community and get this place healed, and we'll rise together. Okay? We'll rise. And he's just clapping. How about a high five? Huh? Okay, good. All right, questions. Let's go and take some here. Yes, sir, way back here.
Very much for attending, first of all. I know it takes a lot of work running for president. Well, I don't know, but I'm assuming it does. My one question is with legal immigration, 23-year-old. So now that it's illegal to have an American citizen,
I think they should be. And you can win. I can't even imagine what the multiple is. And if you can go 3 years to go, you have to go. And then they went, and there were no jobs. So somehow we got a disconnect between the promise and the reality. The other thing is these universities in community colleges have not done their job in controlling their administrative costs and taking out the cost drivers in these schools. Now, I feel like Paul Revere, because if these costs keep rising, people aren't going to go to these schools. They're just going to stop going. They're going to go online with some sort of a unique experience where you can kind of have the 4-year college experience without having to pay all the money.